Yep.
Allows everybody to be successful.
Yep. Welcome back to another episode of 217 South Mills.
Brought to you by Cabin Coffee Altoona, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin.
And Pizza Del Rey, located in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, our favorite pizza shop to go to in the state of Wisconsin.
And so we have teamwork and relationship building, empowering others, developing and trusting your team, selflessness, conflict resolution, emotional intelligence, and inclusiveness. Now, I can tell you right now which one I struggle with. I have a very, very low EQ. Okay, like I do. I was better when I was a cop because I was looking for it, but now in my personal life, I have very, very low EQ. Like I do. Like I don't know. I'll say something and I don't read your facial expressions or your body language because I just said that and I'm waiting for you to respond. So that's one thing in my life that I need to work on because I lack that. I know that for a fact.
But I think something, once again, going from sports to family to business, selflessness, always putting the team, the family, the business above everything else, and then empowering others. Like for you guys with your businesses, it's developing your plan, educating your team about your plan, but then most importantly, trusting your team that they're going to do it. Yeah, not that you're going to throw your hands up and walk away.
Right.
You're going to be there if they struggle, if they have issues, but you're going to educate them well enough. And then after you educate them, you're going to trust them to follow through with the plan while being there to be supportive for them. And that's whether it's on the football field as a quarterback, as a senior quarterback leader of the team, or a senior Mike linebacker leader of the defense, or in business or family, having that plan, everybody believing in that plan, and trusting that everyone's going to follow through with it.
I think a great app is called Masterclass. You guys ever seen that?
No.
It's I paid for it. It was about $300. But I'm telling you, it was the best $300 of my life.
For an app?
Yeah. It was a 1-year application. And for example, they have like coaches, they have athletes, they have musicians, they have just famous people. They talk about how they started. But Mike Krzyzewski was one of them that was talking about. He had his leadership group, right? So he always had his seniors, his captains, and that was called his leadership group. And Shane Battier, I remember, was one of them. And he created an avenue for his leaders to come together. This was outside of practice, talk about what the team, how they were doing, and what they needed to be successful. And that also led into, during the summer, Shane Battier, he made sure Coach Krzyzewski was calling to make sure that he's showing up as the interns. You don't hear those stories.
Yeah.
Showing up in Chicago for internship, making sure he showed up every day, right? Being accountable. And then going back to the basketball team, how they won their national championship was Coach Krzyzewski kicked them out. So this practice isn't going good. But relying on his leadership group to bring it together, bring the team together and say, hey, we're not going to win a championship this way. This is how practice needs to be. And the leaders became the making sure everyone was accountable. And so many times in life, let's just get a new coach. Team's not winning. They didn't win a Super Bowl. Think of the Cleveland Browns if they didn't fire Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Right? That whole staff was unbelievable. But yet, because their Hall of Fame running back fumbled on the 1-yard line, we're going to fire the whole coaching staff.
Yep.
That's just not a way, right, in life. Sometimes you got to, you get knocked down in life, right? You got to realize you don't like it, right? You got to dust yourself off. You got to be persistent like a junkyard dog, and you got to get back up and try again. And if anybody's watching and you're a young athlete, people are going to tell you no. They're going to tell you it's too hard. But if you really want something, you got to go for it.
Yeah.
What's the worst case scenario when you turn 46, 47 years old and you say, hey, I did everything, I didn't make it. But if you would have did something and you followed, just changing one thing, you go back and tell yourself, who knows where it goes.
Yeah.
But don't let somebody tell you can't do it. There's so many great stories about that.
And I think that mentality is genius. I don't know if you even realize we had leadership tables at Wisconsin, and it wasn't really talked about that much. Like, it wasn't bragged about. It wasn't like those guys talked a ton. Those guys that were part of those, they called them leadership tables, they just listened in the locker room. They listened after practice. And I'm not even trying to say like, oh yeah, we had easy days because we complained. But I guarantee there were days where they went to the coaches on Wednesdays and were like, listen, the linemen are complaining, like their legs are killing them. They squatted this morning, they deadlifted, power cleaned. Like, I know we got to work today, but they're dying, and I'm sure with how smart Coach Alvarez was and his staff was, that there were minor adjustments made to make it work. And then looking even locally now at the high school level, we have Coach Mitchell at DC Everest. And this guy, it's easy to say positive things about a coach when you have a really successful season, but just being a parent, talking to other parents, talking to some of the players, like this coach, he just knows what he's doing. He's got the same leadership council on the high school team. And, I think the biggest time when it came into play was the playoff seeding. I believe DC Everest had 2 losses during the regular season, and we got seeded, I believe, as a 7th seed, which still this day, I don't know how the WIA does their seeding. I still think it was a jumbled mess because Stevens Point, who DC Everest beat to win the conference, was seeded like 2 spots above DC Everest. Well, at the award show or whatever, when they announced the rankings or the seeds, players just watched and they applauded. We're in the playoffs. Moms were complaining, dads were complaining. Everybody was vocal. This is BS. We never should be seated here. And I think Coach Mitchell talked to those leaders, sort of got the feelings of the team, and was like, all right, here's how we're going into this week. We're seated where we're seated. We can't change it. Now we got to be the team that comes from behind and knocks everybody off above us. But yeah, it's like everything we keep talking about leadership. The one main thing it goes back to is communication and listening. Being an active listener, not just like we've said early on, not just that guy showboating, shouting his mouth off, saying how everything should be done. It's listening, it's understanding your team, and it's getting everybody to work on the same goal in the same direction.
And I think about active listening. The real important thing about active listening is making sure the other person or the person you're talking to knows that you understand how they feel, right? And making sure that your thoughts and your opinions are valued,
Yes.
right? It doesn't always mean, and that leads into the next one, it doesn't mean that your coach always has a vision of the bigger picture, right? So the coach knows how to guide the ship in the right direction. Sometimes individuals get lost in that, and it's up to the coach with the big vision to help steer, right? And in organizations, it's tough because a lot of people have great ideas. Some work, some don't. But the hard part in organizations are if they try that idea and it doesn't work, all of a sudden their tail goes between their legs and you never hear from them again. They can't take that negative feedback, right? Going into the last one, vision and the big picture thinking. I think that's the most important part of a coach, a general manager, a president. Looking at things at the high level, right? High level will only get you so far, right? You got to have your leaders underneath you. You got to have, your goals between all of your departments. So you got to have your strategic planning. You got to have, you got to think outside the box. You got to self-scout your organization. Offense, scout your offense, find out your tendencies. How can you constantly improve? I think Lou Holtz has one of the great all-time quotes. If a tree is not growing, it's dying. Think about that. Yep. If your organization's not growing, it's dying. Think of Kodak, right? We all had the Kodak, throwaway cameras, right? And believe it or not, there was an engineer that came to him with the digital camera idea. And you know what they told him? No, we got billions in profits. Hey, don't ever bring that up again, right? And so what happened to Kodak?
Yeah.
You even hear of it anymore?
Yeah, they're gone.
Right? So, obviously being innovative, thinking outside the box, goal setting, having that growth mindset, continuing to want to grow. And I think there's another good book called Whale Up. If you haven't read that, that's fantastic. Basically, long story short is a guy that always did leadership training, and he goes to SeaWorld and he watches how they're training those halftime whales, right? Mm-hmm. And he goes up to them, boy, you must be feeding a lot of fish and a lot of food to get it, to do, the work of all the skills that it can do. And, the trainer laughed and said, at first, but a lot of it is positive reinforcement, making that whale know that he's loved and he or she is loved, and rewarding them. And it's amazing finding those successes in organizations, because, an organization can do 95 things right, but those 5 things wrong gets blasted in a newspaper, it gets blasted in the first email of the day from the president, right? So he forgot about 90, or he or she forgot about 95 great things, but blasted, hey, it's the TPS report. Where then 5 managers got to come hound you down and let's do root cause analysis on the 5 things that could be a clerical error, in a computer system because a date didn't change, or it could be, somebody just making a mistake. Mm-hmm. And if somebody makes a mistake in an organization, you shouldn't, be the outcast, right?
Yep.
If you'd like fresh roasted Cabin Coffee delivered directly to your door, go to Cabin Coffee Altoona's Facebook page or 217 South Mills Facebook page. Click on the coffee order form link, fill it out, pick out your beans, and get them delivered directly to your front door. Cabin Coffee Altoona.
So that growth mindset, legacy building, thinking beyond yourself, leading with long-term impact in mind. I think it's back to the knowing the bigger vision. We're a team. We're not me, right?
Yeah.
Team before me. And so many people forget that. And what does a teammate, the leader do? Hey, Joe, I'm working out at the Y. Come on, Bill, let's go, right? Telling a leader, telling them, hey, that's not a good idea. Maybe you shouldn't have all those candy bars. We got a game tomorrow, right? Maybe you should get some sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Those are those leaders that'll tell you, hey, that's not the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. You're better than that. Or, hey, let's leave this place, right? It's getting uncomfortable. Let's leave before we get in trouble. So
100% agree. Couple that pop off at me is the strategic planning, looking ahead and preparing for challenges. Like whether it's going back to football, studying the film, whether it's sales or family, just looking at what the future holds, look at what challenges might come up, and preparing yourself to handle those challenges in the appropriate way. Goal setting. I think that's something that's lost a lot on youth today. Like Joe and I talked early on, how my dad explained goals to me with the ladder. Every rung on the ladder is a different goal. And if your top rung is professional athlete or doctor, you still you got to pass your classes this year. You got to graduate. You got to do this. You got to do that. I think goal setting, today it's gotten way too easy where a lot of youth have the goal at the top, but they don't account for all the individual goals that they have to achieve to get to the top. And I think that's something that they need to work on to get those individual goals to make it a complete path to get to your final destination. And whether you get there or not, like I said, there's a lot of things that I would have liked to have gone different in my life, but I don't have any regrets. I wanted to play 10 years in the NFL. I wanted to retire as a Packer Hall of Famer. I didn't get that, but I don't regret it. I don't say, I wish I watched more film, or I wish I worked out a little bit harder. We use the word dog a lot. I didn't dog anything when I was playing. I gave it my all. There was nothing more to give, which allows me to say I don't have regrets. There's tiny regrets, like should I have gotten a surgery in 2004? Yes. Should I have maybe kept my house in Green Bay instead of selling it? Yes, because I probably could have made a lot of money on it. But those are little things. And then growth mindset, always learning, always evolving, always improving. The one thing I say to youth athletes, and once again, I say this to people all the time, whether it's youth athletes or it's business people, I go, there's always someone out there trying to work harder than you. Whether you see it, the person might not be on your team, might not be the backup on your team, might not be in your conference, might not be in your state, but somebody is trying to take your job. Me and you talked about this all the time about Wisconsin bringing in other scholarship athletes. Why are you doing that? And our coach looking us dead in the eye to take your job. Mm-hmm. somebody's always out there working to try and take from you, which in our minds, because of our mentality, you take from me, you're taking from my family. Now it starts to get emotional, and I'm going to outwork you because I'm not going to allow that to happen. And it's having that mentality to always get better, never get satisfied with where you are. Just like with us, you get to college, it's not, all right, let's kick back. Like, we made it to a D1 college. No, now the work begins.
Right.
And then after all those years and the success we had, for me, I had the opportunity to go to the NFL. That's the last time you want to be like, all right, I made it. Like, I got a little bit of money. Now I can no, now it's 10 times more work that begins. So it's always trying to improve yourself, always having that mindset that you want to be the best, knowing it's a tough road uphill. And you might not achieve it, but if you always strive for it, you're going to be successful in life.
I think, the acronym, SMART, specific, having a specific goal, right? Is it measurable, right? Is it attainable for A? Is it realistic? So a lot of those goals you're talking about, if it's not realistic, it's just kind of one of those,
It's just lip service.
yes. And that never works, right? And it's got to have, time to it, right? And so part of it is knowing the vision of where you want to be in 5 years. But then exactly what you're saying, Bill, is having those smaller goals. My goal is to lose weight, and I want to be 200 pounds, right? And if I'm 300 pounds, got to be realistic. I'm not losing 100 pounds in 1 week.
Yep.
Right. So breaking it down, if I can lose 5 pounds a month, right? After 2 years, I should be where I want to be.
Mhm.
Right. So I think part of that also is telling somebody that goal.
Yes.
Right? Hey, telling your brothers that, hey, Joe, this is what I want to do, and writing it down, giving yourself a nice, clear picture.
You have accountability.
Absolutely.
Yes.
A lot of great athletes would have a vision of something on their, their mirror when they're brushing their teeth, looking at it, so they could just feel it. Right?
Speaking of goals, back to Wisconsin, I know we brought this up months ago in early episodes, but when we lost the Outback Bowl, we lost to Georgia, got our butts kicked. We got back in that locker room. That's when McIntosh had the famous quote, I didn't come to Wisconsin to lose Outback Bowls. I came to Wisconsin to win Rose Bowls. Huber, just like that, looked at all of us O-linemen, and he's like, you're going home for whatever it was, 2.5 weeks. You got 2.5 weeks off. Go enjoy it. When you come back here, we're going back to work. When you come back, and he said to everybody, he goes, I want everybody, I don't care what it looks like, I want everybody to have a picture of a rose, and I want you taping it on your wall next to your bed. I want it to be the last thing you see when you go to sleep and the first thing you see when you wake up. So when you go to bed, you know why you put all that work in that day. And when you wake up, you know what you're putting all that work in that upcoming day for. That's our goal. That's our only goal. And, like I say to people, I go, listen, I'm not telling you as a high school kid, you put a state championship trophy on your wall that you're going to win a state championship, but it gives you something. You are more in line to work the right way in the right direction for your goal. You have a better chance of success than if you just go about it willy-nilly being like, yeah, I want to win a state championship. Well, what are you doing? How many days a week are you going to the gym? I don't know. I try to get there 1 or 2 days. It gives you something to motivate you every day when you get out of bed in the morning.
Think about Utah. They just gave them a truck, and it didn't do very well for
Yeah,
them. But
exactly.
Maybe thinking outside the box. Hey, if we finish, top 2 in rushing or offense, and defense finishes in the top 2,
This
you
is
guys
what you
earn a
get.
truck.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
What would you do?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just a little extra. And then I think, the one thing that we forgot about is passion so far.
Yep.
I mean, a passionate coach, passionate leader really can rally the troops. And I think, listening to the Coach Alvarez, I get to, listen to him a few times at football camps, Coach Stephen Hagan, a lot of these other great coaches. I mean, you just want to run through.
Just full of passion. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The thing
Full of
is you can't fake it.
Yes.
You have some coaches
You
that
either
try
got
to
it or you
fake it or
don't.
you
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
You either have it or you don't. And the ones that don't have it, that try to fake it,
It's 10 times worse.
It's so blatantly obvious. Like, you know what?
Yeah.
You should
And in the next couple episodes, we're going to get to what it makes to be a leader, and maybe we're not trying to coach up a Division I college coach, but if you are a coach listening, and that's not your style, maybe don't jump into that yet. Take smaller steps And the last thing we're going to do in the last episode is talk about what it takes to be a leader. Maybe it's taking some of the smaller goals towards leadership, whether you're a player, a coach, a sales manager, a business owner, whatever it is. You don't have to jump to be the next Barry Alvarez or Bill Parcells or Bill Belichick or whatever. Work your way up, build that confidence, understand what it takes to be a leader, and more importantly, understand your team. Like we talk all the time that the way we were coached, if Coach Alvarez, I know he came out of retirement a couple times to coach bowl games, if he had to come out of retirement to coach the 2025 season, he could not coach it the way he coached us.
Okay.
So you have to know the team around you, whether it's on the sports field, your family, your business, your business team, your sales team, whatever it is. You have to know who's around you on how to communicate to them.
Okay.
But with that being said, I think we're going to wrap up this episode, and I think stay tuned for next week. We're going to have part 2 of leadership, and it's going to be a couple parts here that we're going to be going over leadership. But we want to thank you for tuning in today, and stay tuned for next week. And we want to thank our sponsors.
I want to thank Cabin Coffee Altoona for their sponsorship. Again, it's located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin. Hey, folks, if you're looking for some fresh coffee, I got it for you. Shoot me an email. We have a link on our Facebook page and other social medias, and let me know what you want. I'll get it for you.
And we also like to thank Pizza Del Rey, located in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Thank you, guys. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of 217 South Mills.
If you like what you heard, smash the like and follow buttons on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and X.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Cabin Coffee Altoona. Tune in next time, folks.